When Bible first written, Bible, wrote, biblical, PDF vertical bar quiz, Bible verses, unique facts, classes. When Bible first written, today, the Bible is divided into two major segments, the Old Testament and the New Testament T. The Old Testament consists of 39 books that were written from 1500 BC to 400 BC. These books tell the story of the Israelites and their relationship with God. The New Testament consists of 27 books written from 40 to 100 AD. It focuses on the life and teachings of Jesus and the early Christians. During this time period, the Bible was primarily written in Hebrew and Aramaic, though there were also some Greek versions. Throughout the centuries, the Bible has been translated into many different languages, allowing people all over the world to read and study the Word of God. When Bible first written, the Bible is one of the oldest and most widely read books in the world. It has been around for thousands of years and has been translated into many languages. It is also a very important religious book for many people across the world. It is filled with stories, lessons, and invaluable life advice. In this blog, we will explore how the Bible was written, who wrote it, when it was written, and the various segments of today's Bible. Bible timeline: Old Testament Torah, Law, 1450 to 1410 BCE. The Torah is the body of law in the Old Testament and includes the 5 books of Moses. It includes God's commands for the Israelites and provides guidance for their daily life. Prophets, 800 to 400 BCE. The prophets are a collection of books in the Old Testament that tell stories of the prophets God sent to deliver his message to the people of Israel. It includes books such as Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel. Latter prophets, 650 to 200 BCE. The latter prophets are a group of books in the Old Testament that are believed to have been written after the time of the Babylonian exile. They include the books of Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. Writings, 200 BCE to 100 CE. The writings are a group of books in the Old Testament that were written during the period of the Second Temple. They include Psalms, Proverbs, Job, Ecclesiastes, Song of Songs, Ruth, Lamentations, Esther, Daniel, Ezra, and Nehemiah. New Testament Gospels, 45 to 95 CE. The Gospels are the 4 books in the New Testament that tell the story of Jesus' life and teachings. They include the books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Acts, 60 to 95 CE. Acts is the 5th book of the New Testament and tells the story of the early church and the spread of the gospel. Letters, 50 to 100 CE. The letters are a collection of books in the New Testament that were written by the apostles to the early church. They include books such as 1 Corinthians, Galatians, and Ephesians. Revelation, 90 to 95 CE. Revelation is the last book of the New Testament and tells the story of the end times. 70, 2nd century BCE. The 70 is the Greek version of the Old Testament, translated from the Hebrew by 70 scholars in Alexandria, Egypt. King James Bible, 1611 CE. The King James Version, KJV, of the Bible is the English translation of the Bible authorized by King James I of England. Authorized Version, 1901 CE. The Authorized Version of the Bible is an updated version of the King James Version. It was commissioned by the Church of England in 1901. New International Version, 1978 CE. The New International Version, NIV, of the Bible is a modern English translation of the Bible that was first published in 1978. How the Bible was written: the Bible was written over a period of approximately 1,600 years. It was written by 40 different authors with different backgrounds, writing styles, and in different languages. Most of the books in the Bible were originally written in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Koine Greek. It is important to note that the Bible was not written in one sitting by one person. Papyrus. Ancient Egypt was one of the earliest civilizations to use papyrus, a writing material made from the pith of a reed-like plant, for writing manuscripts. Papyrus was used to copy the Bible in both Hebrew and Greek up until the 5th century AD. Vellum. Vellum is a fine parchment made from the skin of a calf, goat, or sheep. It was used to make copies of the Bible in the Middle Ages. From the 6th century through the 16th century. Illuminated manuscripts. During the Middle Ages, illuminated manuscripts, handwritten copies of the Bible with decorative illustrations, were created. These manuscripts were made from vellum or parchment and were often decorated with gold and silver leaf. Incunabula. Incunabula, or cradle books, are books printed with movable type in the 15th century. The Gutenberg Bible was the first book printed using this method, and it was used to make copies of the Bible during the Renaissance. Movable type. In the 16th century, Gutenberg's printing press revolutionized the way books were printed and copies of the Bible were made. Movable type was used to print multiples of the same text, allowing for mass production of books. Lithography. Lithography, a method of printing using a stone or metal plate, was invented in the late 18th century. This method was used to produce copies of the Bible in the 19th century. Offset printing. Offset printing printing, which uses a mechanical process for transferring an image from a plate to a printing surface, was developed in the early 20th century. It was used to produce copies of the Bible in the 1950s and continues to be used today. Segments of today's Bible. The Bible is a collection of writings that have been compiled over many centuries, and the exact date of when the first written version of the Bible was created is unknown. However, many historians believe that the earliest writings of the Bible come from the 10th century BCE, with the bulk of the work being completed by the 5th century BCE. Old Testament. The Old Testament is the first part of the Bible, which is divided into 4 sections: the Pentateuch, the historical books, the wisdom literature, and the prophets. The Pentateuch is the first 5 books of the Bible, which are Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. The historical books are Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1 and 2 Samuel, 1 and 2 Kings, 1 and 2 Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther. The wisdom literature includes Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Solomon. Finally, the prophets consist of Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. New Testament. The New Testament is the second part of the Bible, which is divided into 4 sections: the Gospels, the Acts of the Apostles, the Epistles, and the Book of Revelation. The Gospels include Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The Acts of the Apostles is the book that follows the life of the Apostle Paul after Jesus' death. The Epistles are letters written by the Apostles to churches and individuals and include Romans, 1 and 2 Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1 and 2 Thessalonians, 1 and 2 Timothy, Titus, Philemon, Hebrews, James, 1 and 2 Peter, 1, 2, and 3 John, and Jude. Finally, the Book of Revelation is a book of prophecy. Apocrypha. The Apocrypha is a collection of books that were written between 200 BC and 100 AD. These books are not included in the Protestant Bible, but some of them are included in the Catholic Bible. The books of the Apocrypha are Tobit, Judith, Wisdom of Solomon, Ecclesiasticus, Baruch, Letter of Jeremiah, Prayer of Manasseh, 1 and 2 Maccabees, and 1 and 2 Esdras. Identifying the oldest Bible. The oldest Bible in existence is the Codex Sinaiticus, which dates back to the 4th century AD. It is one of the most accurate and complete copies of the Bible in existence. It contains all of the books of the New Testament and most of the books of the Old Testament. It is currently housed in the British Library in London. Codex is Codex Vaticanus. The Codex Vaticanus, also known as B, is one of the oldest extant manuscripts of the Greek Bible. It was written in the 4th century and is the oldest known complete Bible manuscript in existence. It contains most of the Septuagint and the New Testament, along with some additional materials. It is held at the Vatican Library and is one of the most important biblical manuscripts in the world. Codex Sinaiticus. The Codex Sinaiticus is an ancient Greek manuscript of the Bible, dated to the 4th century. It is the oldest known complete New Testament and the second oldest extant Christian Bible in the world. It is held at the British Library and is one of the most important biblical manuscripts in the world. Codex Alexandrinus. The Codex Alexandrinus is a 5th century manuscript of the Greek Bible, containing most of the Old Testament and the New Testament. It is held at the British Library and is one of the most important biblical manuscripts in the world. Codex Bezae. The Codex Bezae is an early 5th century Greek manuscript of the Gospels, Acts, and Epistles. It is held at the University Library of Cambridge and is one of the most important biblical manuscripts in the world. Codex Ephraemi Rescriptus. The Codex Ephraemi Rescriptus is an early 5th century Greek manuscript of the Bible. It contains most of the Septuagint, the New Testament, and some additional materials. It is held at the Bibliothèque Nationale de France and is one of the most important biblical manuscripts in the world. Codex Nitriensis. The Codex Nitriensis is an early 6th century Greek manuscript of the Bible. It contains most of the Septuagint, the New Testament, and some additional materials. It is held at the British Library and is one of the most important biblical manuscripts in the world. Codex Washingtonianus. The Codex Washingtonianus is an early 5th century Greek manuscript of the Old and New Testament. It is held at the Freer Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C., and is one of the most important biblical manuscripts in the world. Codex Augiensis. The Codex Augiensis is an early 9th century Greek manuscript of the Bible. It contains most of the Septuagint, the New Testament, and some additional materials. It is held at the British Library and is one of the most important biblical manuscripts in the world. Father, grandfather, minister, missionary, deacon, elder, author, welcome to our family. View all posts.